Hello, everybody, and welcome to O-Tōkushō. We have a very, I guess it's a special episode. We've been, and by we, have been very busy this month, so we're kind of doing a bit of a mini episode to give both ourselves and our editor Julius a break. And we're kind of revisiting an old topic from kind of our third episode, actually.
Yeah, like it's really far back. We haven't covered this in a while.
But yeah, I'm Alex. I'm joined by my co-host Jack.
And we're going to be going back to an old topic that many people love. Yep.
We're going to be isekaiing back into the strange
Isekais.
world of isekais.
We're getting isekai back into isekais. It's very meta, incredibly deep.
I was thinking about our episode. I was re-listening to it, and I was thinking about some aspects that maybe we weren't thinking about at the time. And while the world itself is important, I think also who's getting isekai is also important. So, like, your ideal, I mean, sure, you could go into, like, wherever you pick, but it might not be, like, the best case scenario for you.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, what would be the best way to figure out how to quantify, like, what's the best possible place for you to go? And then I thought about what I ended up coming up with, which is the will-want spectrum. On this calculates, I should say, how much will you have to succeed and sort of push through like any sort of challenges in your way, and what you want to achieve while you're actually in this fresh new world. To start with examples, Jack he's a very strong boy, a man who is capable of walking great distances without any issue. No stranger to hard work, for sure. And also, he's someone who knows what he wants and dreams big. So, he would go on the higher end of the will-want spectrum. Sort of towards the middle, we have a set of twins here. We have Robin and we have Morgan. Robin has a lot of willpower. He can get a lot done really well, but he is satisfied with whatever he's given. He is perfectly fine doing what he can do and doing what he does. But Morgan, he wants to achieve quite a lot. However, he isn't the most physically capable. He does have quite high ambitions for himself.
Would also be prone to giving up easily as well. Not necessarily just being weak, like, doesn't want to put in the effort to do it.
And then on the end of the spectrum, we have me. I am totally fine living on what I got going on, and just chilling. And also, I'm not the most sort of willful person out there. I take what I can get, but very much the kind of person who is happy staying in his own lane, and really only capable of doing that.
Yeah, complacent, but not necessarily as a negative attribute.
What does this spectrum mean, exactly? I think willpower, it's pretty obvious how much you're able to endure to reach your goal. And then the want is where your goal is and what you hope to achieve. To sort of break down the spectrum a bit more, with Jack, the high will, high want, I think the best case scenario for him are shonen series where hard work pays off extremely well, and sometimes literally. I think series like Dragon Ball come to mind, Hunter x Hunter, where anyone is capable of excelling, and even the power system at hand often rewards those who put in the time, put in the effort to sort of gain power that way.
Even if you're not necessarily gifted or skilled by comparison to others.
Yes, and also, those particular series, it's not really like handed to you per se, it's more that you have to go out and achieve those things.
Yeah, the power system exists outside of your own character, and if you're willing to go through the steps to learn how to use it, you can then take advantage of it and achieve it. And that's technically available to anyone.
I think One Piece is another example of this.
With hockey especially. Like Kobe, for example, just literal mop boy that we meet in the beginning of their series, now able to punch mountain-sized people to pieces.
A lot of shonen is in this sort of bubble here. So next up is Robin, the high will, low want. I think typical isekais, where a character is sort of like, either they're like born into like the world, or they are like grafted onto like a specific character in like MMO, like Overlord comes to mind for this. Any sort of series or world where the challenges come to you and you kind of have to like almost defend yourself, really.
Yeah, you're just maintaining the status quo.
With that, you have your power and you're able to like overcome the obstacles, but like the obstacles come to you, and then that sort of like, it's almost like loot is kind of throwing itself at your door, and you just have to like endure the knocking of the loot, basically.
there's no want to achieve more, because you're already either there or contented wherever you are.
Yeah, or other people are striving towards you, and you're kind of just like...
keeping them at bay. Yeah.
JoJo's is another good example of this, because in our scenario, you do get the power of the world, so you'll have a stand, and as we know from part 4, stands attract other stands, meaning that eventually some fucking, like, bedazzled, like, multi-patterned lunatic is gonna try and, like, fight you.
Some ambiguously evil, just clown person who's vaguely between the ages of 18 and 65 will just be there trying to mess up your things.
So there's that. Next up is Morgan, with Low Will, High Want. I think series where power is, like, handed out randomly and can be easily exploited. Stuff like Seven Deadly Sins or Fairy Tail, where you get magic just, like, as, like, a power, and, like, it could just be, like, really, like, just something really, like, OP, just, like, at the start.
Yeah, just randomly thrust upon you. Oh, you happen to be a demon, and you have the ability to, like, manipulate people's souls. That's cool. You could just do that. Or you're an angel with a blessing of some kind, right? That just makes you like a demigod immediately.
Or, I thought about this too, Isekai series where there's a very specific rule put in place that you can just use to like just exploit, basically, to just like get things pretty easy. I know there's a series where like the main character has a really high drop rate in dungeons, so he like gets all the best loot.
Yeah, just get money for days. Yeah.
There's that series, like, where someone has, like, really high defense, and they just have, like, a shield that just kills everybody.
Yep, that's Shield Hero. There's a series that some people have probably heard me speak about occasionally in the manga chapters when we go over them, but there's one called Re-Monster, where the entire hero's, like, gimmick is that they get more powerful the more things they eat, and they inherit, like, abilities from the things they consume, and technically other people have access to this ability too, but he's very good at it, and also he started as a goblin, so he's like a monster separate from society that's able to take full advantage of this incredibly, theoretically, busted ability in-game.
So Morgan, they can use their ambitions, and they can use their brains more importantly to sort of find a workaround and kind of game the system on their way out. And finally, there's me, Alex, and sort of slice of life or sort of gag series are where I find myself most attracted to. You know, stuff like Dr. Slump, like interspecies reviewers, or stuff that has like kind of like a recreational activity, or like something where there is a thing to do that doesn't necessarily involve just like fighting each other. Food Wars, for instance, Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon, Beyblade, I guess.
I don't know, man. Those are some life or death, duels right there. If you let it rip, you gotta put your life on the line.
I guess I don't know the main mechanics of Beyblade, so I can't really speak to whether or not.
You're talking about a series where canonically Moses split the Red Sea with a Beyblade.
But I don't know like what kind of tech is necessary for
Oh, there's just fighting spirits that occasionally, depending on the series, are tangible or not. Sometimes you can die. Usually you don't, and it's just a fun game that happens to rule the entire world. Kind of like Yu-Gi-Oh!
Which also, you can get sent to the Shadow Realm.
Sometimes, yeah.
I don't know how that works.
We're going to have an episode on the games that are actually the most important thing in the world. It's been in the works for a long time, but we'll have that eventually. But those type of things, where the world is kind of casual, quote-unquote, and the highest stakes that are involved is just maybe shame?
I could just get a job working at like a bar or like an inn or something like that. And then on my free time, I could just go to like, I don't know, I could just like buy a deck of cards, or I can like go down to the local monster brothel of some description.
Right.
And I'm set for like
just
my whole
chilling.
life.
Yeah, like you could be a normal citizen and be perfectly content.
Obviously, interspecies reviewers and like sort of harem like series or whatever. Obviously, those are like are much preferred to anything else. But like it's the point of like there is a specific like thing to do that it's like something where I could still have like a story, like I could still like do like a Duel Monsters championship, or I could like become a Pokemon master. But like it's not something that I need to like really strive high to like achieve, just being able to like do that thing all day every day.
Yeah, you don't have to be Ash. You could just be that one guy that Ash fights that has like 18 Weedles, and just be perfectly happy with all your bugs, right? Have your friends.
I could postulate on how much I love shorts. Exactly.
Exactly.
That's kind of the will want spectrum, and you can kind of post yourself in whichever of that you want to do. We did come across an interesting conversation with our editor Julius when we were explaining the concept to him, and that is sort of where it's not that he has like neither ambition, it's more that he's adaptable to whatever situation that he might find himself in.
He's kind of like a wild card. We equated it to, if this is like an XY situation, he'd be like a Z axis kind of sticking out of it, where he's vaguely above the chart somewhere, but doesn't feel committed to any particular place, because for him it's entirely context-based.
But that is the will-want spectrum. Pretty simple topic, but I think I have an excuse to bring this up, and I think that since we're doing kind of a shorter episode today, I think this was the perfect time to do that. Notes, ideas, comments, questions, 2 cents. You have, Jack?
I mean, not a huge amount. This is just at the end of the day, a categorization and kind of like a thought experiment, which is fun for this type of thing. We have terms and shit for other things in this community anyway, so like, why not throw another one out there?
Exactly. I think the isekai discussion is a lot more interesting than like versus discussions when it comes to like anime and like that sort of thing.
And I believe we've passed the renaissance for it as well, so it's not nearly as oversaturated as it used to be too, which is good. Makes it easier to talk about it without being exhausted. But like the one thing I want to mention is that this technically constitutes so many different videos and stories that I've read where you just do a hypothetical of how far would X make it in Y's universe. For example, I've seen an entire series of how far certain characters would make it in the Dragon Ball universe, for example. So, like, how far would Gon make it in Dragon Ball? And the person that does this, I don't actually remember their name right now, I'm sorry, but the person who does these videos doesn't just go into how strong they are within their own universe, because that's a little bit of a cop-out. At that point, the answer is just, oh, Gon is this strong by the end of Hunter x Hunter, that means he makes it to this point in Dragon Ball. That's not the point. The point specifically is to go based off of their latent potential and their personal character to see how far they make it in Dragon Ball. And that fits exactly what we're talking about here. Gon, for example, actually makes it very far, for obvious reasons. But almost every character they've gone over that's been like a main protagonist has gone really far.
Yeah,
because they share... Right, they always share maximum will, but at that point, you're just kind of fluctuating on where the want lands on that axis. But Gon happens to have very high will and very high want. In the situation, by the way, they just made it so that Gon's father was just like, a particularly strong person in the universe that, like, went to a different planet or some shit to, fight strong dudes or something. To give Gon the reason to try to go into space and become a super warrior himself. But yeah, so there's other things that already do this type of thing. They just probably don't realize they're doing it.
And plus it'll give you another talking point if you are having this kind of conversation with buds or whatever. Speaking of that, I have a few sort of rules based on our previous rule set that we made, also some addendums. So those of you remember, our sort of ideal isekai scenario was that you are tossed into the world a year before the story takes place, and you have a random power that is part of the power system, and you have the potential of the main character, and that's kind of what we had for our isekai episode. I think there are a few things that I would like to add to that. I think, for instance, the difference between a narrative isekai and a sandbox isekai. So a series like there's the fan series of I became Yamcha.
Yamcha? Ooh, it's a good one. It's very good if anyone hasn't read it yet.
I mean, obviously the main character is Yamcha, but also the events of the story play out as they did in the actual Dragon Ball series, which I think is where the narrative half of this rule comes into play. So, and that also includes the rule of you arrive 1 year before the narrative of the story happens. I think with Sandbox, however, I think it is sort of the default version of world that it is. Like, there's not really any like sort of major events happening. Like, if you go into One Piece, right, stuff like Crocodile's plan to destroy Alabasta or like the Marineford War wouldn't happen, and you'd kind of go to islands as their sort of default, like, de facto being.
Yeah, because you're technically there before the major shit happens, so it makes sense that it hasn't been, like, intrinsically altered yet.
Yes, but also that major shit doesn't happen in, like, a sandbox mode.
I mean, kind of. That's how these guys work.
Those, like, you can kind of just, like, chill on, like, Water 7, for instance, and like the whole CP9 thing doesn't happen, even if like you wait there for forever, right?
At that point, you're functionally just in like an alternate universe version.
Oh yeah, that is kind of the point of this rule, is that it gives you the opportunity to just like explore the world and kind of just like do what you want to do and kind of have your own story version of it.
Well, because the first one is just a full-on what if, right, situation with the narrative one, and Sandbox is basically choose your favorite aesthetic and then just kind of go off. So I like that.
We mentioned start like where you end up in the world in the first one, but we were just like, oh, it's random. I think the addendum to that is that it should be a populated area. Like you're not gonna end up in
just a cave out in the middle of the woods, being raised by bears. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not gonna end up on like the gourmet world in
oh
god.
Actually, the funny thing is, depending on where you go, you may die instantaneously, Alex. It's really bad out there.
Yeah. So it's like a place where it's like populated and like normal people are living there.
Yeah, like no smaller than Syrup Village as like a scale for reference. You're not just hanging out with Gaimon by himself on the island.
Also, with the starting point rule, I think also you should get about a week's worth of like whatever the currency is of like whatever the cost of room and board is for a week. I think that gives anybody enough time to either like find a job, find like whatever sort of like structure they can get with their lives, like do something to establish themselves in the actual series, and you're not just like homeless for like the first like few months of it.
There are some isekais that start that way, but we don't have to make it that way. Well, especially considering in this situation, you're not like born, right? Or you're not fully reincarnated. Instead, you're straight up like transplanted into it instead.
There are some series that have like inherent power systems, which makes it difficult for like a normal person going into like the Naruto world, because their ancestors didn't get the stupid Kaguya chakra from whatever the fuck. Like you will gain access to whatever like power system is inherent with the world you're in, and you're also whatever is sort of like the norm for like a human to like be in terms of like toughness and stuff, like how in Hunter x Hunter the people are a bit more durable than they are in our world.
Yeah, the same deal with like the long-livedness of the people in One Piece as well. That makes sense.
And that the random power you get, I think it is like it'll fit your personality essentially.
Yeah, makes sense. It's like Hunter x Hunter style, right? Like whatever Nen nature you get is based off of your, regular human nature anyway.
Yeah, or like if I go to JoJo's, I will get a stand that like has to do with like art or something like that, or
hopefully. We have had stand users whose stands do not jive well with themselves.
For the sake of this discussion, it would.
Yeah, it kind of has to. One, it makes it more interesting and more fun, and two, if it's just completely random, it's almost pointless in like doing the thought experiment in the first place.
If you would have like the same powers as an existing power, like for instance, if your personality was like would give you like a quirk that was like Bakugo's, you would have like a slight variation on it, like how Jotaro and Dio are like slightly different in terms of like their stands, but it's like the same thing.
Yeah, similar power set, different application, different appearance.
In Kirby, like there's the ability like of blazing, and it's different from fire, but like it's the same.
They're both fire abilities. Yeah.
And then finally, on the topic of potential, I think it's not the same as the main character, like because that makes stuff like Hunter x Hunter where you're just like insane.
Yeah, you just become a monster immediately.
But I think you have enough potential to become the main character of the story, if that makes any sense. Like,
yeah, you can be one step behind. Like, you're not going to be the highest possible ceiling in the world, but you don't have to be so low that you'd be insignificant. And you could make your way to it if you really tried.
And this mostly just goes for, like, series where potential is, like, everything, like Hunter x Hunter is. Because I've talked to enough people where they'll get too literal with, like, a discussion like this, and then they'll be like, oh, well, I'm just a random guest. I wouldn't do nothing.
And then I'll just die, I guess.
And it's like, okay, cool. Come on, be fun for like a minute.
Right? Yeah, just do something interesting, please, I beg of you.
Yeah, that's all the addendums that I wanted to make. Jack, do you have any that you...
If I had any particular one that I could add or subtract, the only thing I would change is I would want to give people the option to not necessarily have to go into the world as a human.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, I like that a lot. That's good.
It's mostly for the furries that listen to this. But if you're not a furry and you happen to just have some hang-ups about your personal appearance or whatever, right? Because not everyone's comfortable, right, with themselves the way they are. And even if you can have a glorious isekai transformation, some people genuinely aren't in a good enough physical condition where they can even, like, hypothetically get into shape in time before they die. So, yeah, I want to give people the option to do, like, a character create type deal where they can give themselves, like, ideal or even average, like, physical, like, genuinely, some people would settle for average, like, physical, like, appearance and health as well.
Yeah, because, like, you know, like, Ainz didn't start as, like, wasn't a skeleton man when he died,
Came into the world.
Yeah, he was, like...
Yeah.
And also, like, not every world has, like, you can't just, like, wish on the Dragon Balls to make yourself a Saiyan or a Frieza race person or whatever, so...
Exactly. Some places just have different races, and you'll never get the chance, because if you're isekai as a human, you're just a human. And some settings, being human actually is a handicap.
That was a good one. I like that one, Jack.
Yeah. That's it. You know, a little bit of more... I don't want to say well-roundedness, because that's not accurate. I guess saying casting a wider net is more accurate for this, because it allows more people to participate in this and still have a good time.
On top of that, it also just, like, gives people more options and more things to, like, sort of discuss and, like, oh, here's the pros and cons of this, that, and the other thing, right?
Yeah. It adds an extra factor to it, which is nice.
That is all I have on this topic. We didn't do a manga review or any kind of funny segments this week just because we wanted to, again, special episode. Do you have anything else you want to add before we take off?
To use our own system that's been amended at the end here, what do you want for a narrative and what do you want for a sandbox world if you had a choice?
For a narrative, honestly, I mean, I again, this is just me being, like, gross, but honestly, like, interspecies reviewers, I just want to, like, chill out with like Stunk and with Zell and just, like, honestly, I think it'd just be, like, super chill to just do that as, like, a job.
It's just a pretty choice job.
I don't remember what races they're, like what races of, like, friends they have that, like, go with them, but I'd probably want to do something, like, different than the ones like that, just so I can, like, offer some kind of variety or whatever.
I don't think they have a beast person.
They do. They have, he's, like, I think he's a monk, maybe?
Oh, okay.
Maybe, like, a lizard person or, like, even just, like, a demon.
Oh, they don't have a demon.
So, yeah, that's right up my alley. Yeah, I'd do that, and that'd be sort of my narrative one, because, to be fair, there's not much of a narrative in that series, but... Yeah. And then for Sandbox, it's Pokemon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Pokemon's a good one for Sandbox. It really is. For narrative from me, I would like to... Well, I thought at first, like, oh, Dragon Ball would be pretty cool. And then I remembered, no, it wouldn't. The world would be, like, falling apart all the time.
Yeah, you have to do a lot of work to get that to...
Just sustain life in any meaningful... Like, the cities are constantly erupting and exploding. Even the dinosaurs are taking their bags and leaving. It's that bad. So for actual narrative, if I get isekai into a world, I think a cool one for me to be involved in, just because it'd be fun, a good setting for a lot of friends to be around, I want to get sent into something like Beelzebub or Gintama.
Okay.
You know? Well, because I'll have a pre-established group of people who are all cool and fun, right? I can just be a classmate of theirs. I don't have to be, like, super important. But because I have all this potential and power, I can also be that, like, cool classmate that just shows up at random during an arc and is, like, incredibly powerful for just no goddamn reason.
Like Chad and Bleach, but more...
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, oh, you're just like the big guy in class, and you're telling me you're a human that can punch hollows to death with your bare fists. Okay. Yeah, nice. But yeah, that would be an ideal, like, a narrative one to follow. Because also, the gag mangas always are, like, arc-based as well. So I have break times in between the world falling apart, you know? It's not constant and on at all times. And for Sandbox is a tough one, because there's a lot of really cool settings that just exist in anime. There's just so many. I really want to say One Piece. However, I don't like the fact the world doesn't have that much land.
Yeah, it's not very connected to each other.
No, it's not very connected to each other. There's water everywhere. The world government blows, And as a person like myself, if I'm in a position with enough authority and power to make a difference, I will just actively fight against the government if I could. And it's not going to be conducive to a very chill time.
And to like even take full advantage of like the world and stuff, you need to get a devil fruit and like all the water again.
Exactly. And suddenly now I'm landlocked in a world that doesn't have a lot of land. So probably not that one, even though it would be very cool. And I really want to eat all the food in that world so bad. I know I've already talked about this before at length, but I would like to live in the Dungeon Meshi universe. It's a low power ceiling environment. Magic does exist. People are generally stronger and tougher than in real life. It's basically just like real life with fantasy people and a pretty well established like world order and peace. So it's just a nice environment to just do dungeoneering.
Oh yeah.
And have a good time. Doing that, and when I'm ready to retire, I can, because they have a world stable enough to not require you to be a murder hobo at all times to survive. So that would be nice. Also, the fact that out of all the places I could go that has a similar aesthetic, Dungeon Meshi is one of the few places that can, hard confirms that everything is edible. Like, I could genuinely eat everything if I wanted to in that setting, which is cool. And, yeah, that would be it for me. So, of course, like last time, after hearing this, discuss amongst yourselves. Post any comments you'd like about your own scenarios. Answer the questions if you want, right? With whatever narrative isekai you want to get sucked into, or whatever sandbox setting you would prefer to be kind of caught up in as well.
Yeah, that'd be great to hear. I've been pretty busy with stuff recently, but it's getting to be more normal for me now, so I'm probably going to be able to get more stuff done. I know it's kind of a meme at this point, but the My Hero with Nen it's still happening. We're still working on it. Hopefully have it out before the end of the year.
We are still doing one episode a month. Even if the release date doesn't match the month, the recording does. So we have still technically recorded one episode a month. So we're keeping to our resolution, which it should be an accomplishment to itself, because no one ever keeps the resolutions.
Catch you next time in November.
All right. Say hello to your families. Enjoy the rest of Spooky Month, and have a great day.
Yeah, all right. Peace out.
Bye.